Welcome to Off the Record with me, Sanny Ntayombya. Every Friday, I bring a brand new perspective to the week's old headlines. So sit back, relax, and let's get that conversation going. But before we do, make sure you hit that follow button. And now, let's get into the very first headline.
Hey, the presidential campaigns are really heating up with the RPF really painting the town red, white, and blue. In fact, the party of President Paul Kagame is so dominant that you'd think that he was standing alone. However, he's not. He's standing against two other candidates, Frank Habineza and his Democratic Green Party of Rwanda, as well as Philip Mpayimana, who's running as an independent. As I said last week, the outcome of the 15th July election is as clear as day. President Kagame will win in a landslide. So because the presidential election result is not in doubt, I'm finding the tussle for second place between Habineza and Mpayimana much more intriguing, because last time the two candidates went up against each other in 2017, Mpayimana gave Habineza a bloody nose. So, like the RPF flag bearer, the two men have been going district to district asking for votes and saying they will do all sorts of things. What are some of those interesting things they have said so far? Well, Mpayimana says that if elected, as soon as someone completes high school, they will have to undergo a mandatory 6 months of military training. And if they refuse, they will not be allowed to get a job or join a university. Listen, I'm all for patriotism and all that, but let's be serious here. For example, last year, 48,674 candidates sat for the A-level examinations. So what he's actually saying is that if he wins, for 6 months, government will need to clothe, house, and feed over 45,000 people. And I'm not even adding the thousands of people who will be needed to train and take care of all these young people. Where will the money come from? Which budget line will be removed? Visit Rwanda? Will it be roads? Or will it come from maybe MP's salary? I say MPs because Mpayimana actually also wants to cut the number of MPs from 80 to 65. And to be honest, I don't see why not. Some of the debates I've been listening to and the levels of reasoning coming from some of the honorables in the House have tempted me to think that maybe if we reduce the whole place by half, the output would pretty much remain the same. I mean, I prefer, as Rwandans, we like to say, bache beza, few but good. Habineza, on the other hand, is all about cutting taxes. He wants to put an end to the tax on land. If there is something that I'm a fan of, it's tax reduction, because that's just more money in my pocket. But development costs money. So where will the money come from? Loans, foreign aid, a magic pie in the sky? You make all sorts of promises on the campaign trail, and then if and when you win, you end up struggling to fulfill your pledges. And that's what we call politics these days. But maybe, just maybe, we should aspire for more. Maybe we should create a culture where we underpromise and overdeliver. The second story that really interested me was about the issues around the Veterans World Cup. I mean, just 2 months away from kickoff of the inaugural Veterans World Cup, or VCWC, that was scheduled for September 1st to the 10th at Amahoro Stadium, well, that event has been canceled. This after the government of Rwanda on Wednesday decided to end its 3-year partnership with Easy Group, a company that organizes the event. So these guys were supposed to organize an event that was supposed to bring to Rwanda legends like Ronaldinho, Michael Owen, and Oliver Kahn. I mean, I was kind of excited, but it was a bit of a strange situation. And interestingly enough, in a statement that is now deleted on Twitter, the VCWC posted, and I quote, "RDB's decision, which marks an end to its relationship with a major partner of the VCWC event, does not signify the cancellation of the VCWC." The statement then ended with a we shall provide updates on the situation. I guess the update was for their social media people to press delete to that statement. So today you cannot find that statement. However, funny enough, as of Thursday morning when we recorded this podcast, if you are to go to their website, guess who's called the global partner of VCWC? Visit Rwanda. Who is deemed the official airline? Rwanda Air. Who is the official banking partner? Bank of Kigali. What is one of the 2 regional sponsors? BK Arena. Who are 3 of the 4 media partners? The New Times, EGH, and RBA. So that's a problem. But the larger question is, why did the government pull the plug? Remember, this is a government that's doing all it can to bring events to the country. So it probably made this decision after much thought, which makes me believe that the VCWC organizers simply didn't have the money and organizational ability to pull it off. The government probably came to the conclusion that Rwanda's stellar reputation was at risk if the event flopped. And personally, I'm not surprised. The idea of the VCWC didn't really make that much sense to me. I mean, the idea was that they would bring a bunch of old men, stars, but old men, put them in a 10-day tournament, and then expect to fill a 45,000-seater stadium for each and every match that those old men would play. I mean, the math did not simply make sense to me. The numbers did not make sense. And I think the government came to the very same conclusion and just pulled the plug. And good for them. Personally, I still hope that the team at Visit Rwanda and RDB still extend invitations to the legends to come to Rwanda. And I mean, I don't see any reason why Ronaldinho cannot come during Kwitizina and perhaps Nemo Gorilla. I mean, that would be great. Now, looking at what's happening in the region and across a bit further from our borders, after all the brouhaha and grandstanding, Kenyan President William Ruto has bowed to pressure and withdrawn the controversial Finance Bill 2024, but not before over 10 young people were shot and killed and scores others injured, some gravely. Throw in the fact that the Ugandan embassy in Nairobi was set on fire, and all I can ask now is, what was this all for? And what comes next? The financial issues that besiege the Kenyan people still remain. And as Ruto reminded everyone on Wednesday, 61% of all the Kenyan taxes collected are spent on paying their debts. I guess that's what happens when you owe $65 billion. Well, Ruto had a chance to become a hero, sign into law the unpopular bill, sack a bunch of civil servants, thereby reducing the government wage bill, and then use the increased funds to reduce the national debt. This course of action would have certainly made him a one-term president, but maybe it would have changed Kenya for the good. Now, with this toing and froing, he's likely going to be a deeply unpopular as well as fiscally irresponsible president. In other words, he chose the worst case scenario both for himself and the Kenyan people. He literally had the chance to reset everything, but instead he chose more of the same. What a shame. And a bit closer to our borders, anyone with an iota of sense knows that Eastern DRC is no cakewalk. I mean, to involve yourself in that mess is to accept that you'll see death in close quarters. However, I suspect that the South African politicians who decided to send their armed men to the region didn't think that those rules applied to them. Well, reality has struck, and their boys are going home in body bags. Just on Wednesday, the South African army announced the death of 2 men, bringing the number of deaths to at least 7 since their deployment last December. And this without counting the tens that have been gravely injured and the war material that has been destroyed and even requisitioned by the M23 rebels. The South Africans probably thought that they'd come with their big tanks and big guns and scatter the little rebels. Well, they've certainly met their match. All that is left is to speculate on the way forward. Will Ramaphosa, now that he's suffered an election humiliation, withdraw the troops? Will his new white coalition partners from the DA party pressure him to withdraw? Or will they support increased South African involvement? The rumors swirling around the region is that Felix Tshisekedi, the Congolese president, promised the South African leaders mining concessions if they pushed back the rebels. So, will Ramaphosa accept to risk losing such a juicy reward? I'll be watching very, very closely the ANC-DA coalition talks, because from these negotiations will come either a move towards a more robust South African foreign policy when it comes to the use of the country's military forces, or one that is more centered on guarding the South African borders. And that, my friends, is a wrap for this week's episode. Thank you so much for making it to the very end. Remember to follow us on our social media and to make sure to check out my other podcast, The Long Form with Sanny Ntayombya. It comes out every Monday like clockwork. Hope to have you back next Friday. Have a great weekend.